So let's get right into how we can speed up the performance of the machine by cutting down on what runs in the background. I'm going to do this for both Windows 7 and Windows 10, and as you can see here I've got a Windows 7 machine running just here. So we'll go into that in a little while, but I also have I'm running Windows 10, and that's here. First things to talk about is really what's running in the background. The best way to find that out is with the Task Manager. If you just type in the word task, you'll see the Task Manager comes up in Windows 10. This is actually quite a good view of what's going on in the system, and if we look by clicking the memory here, we can see what's using up the most RAM, and that typically is what's going to slow things down. A lot of people say, well, it's the CPU that slows things down. Well, that's only going to be true if something is using 100% CPU. You can see here the total system usage is 12% at the moment. Nothing's hitting it at 100%. So let's look at the memory, because that'll give us a good guide as to what might be running in the background that perhaps we can cut down on. Now, doing the same thing under Windows 7. Basically what we're going to do is do a search for Task Manager, so TASKMGR will bring up the Task Manager, and that will give us this view, which is similar to the other one but not quite the same. What we want to make sure we're seeing though is all processes from all users. Now this means other users that might be logged onto the system, but it also includes the system. So by ticking that, we get an awful lot more shown here than you would normally see. Performance, we can see our CPU usage is jumping up a bit, and we can see we've not got an awful lot of physical RAM in this system. 3 gigabytes, so we're using up 1.5 gigabytes, so that's half the system memory that is shown here on this graph. So what we really want to know is what is it that's taking up the memory on here. By organizing it in this order here, we can see that A5 backup, whatever that is taking up a fair bit, and QBDBMG, and these descriptions are not very helpful. So the first thing we should do is just expand this window a little, give ourselves a bit of room here, expand the description because the descriptions are quite helpful, expand the actual system usage, expand the file name so that we can actually see what's going on. Now we've got a better idea. A5 backup.exe, well, I know what that is. That's an Atix 5 backup program that runs regularly on this machine. QBDBMGN, that's the QuickBooks. We use QuickBooks for our accounts, and this is the QuickBooks Management Center database manager that runs that, which actually runs on this little PC here, and we've got a few other bits and pieces there. So we can get a quick view as to what might be causing a problem. Now, whilst we're in Windows 7, let's just quickly look at something called msconfig. And if you just type msconfig, it brings up this little tool here. Now, what this allows us to do is to decide what should be starting up when the machine starts. The more things that are loaded in memory when the machine first starts, the slower the machine will be. That only becomes true when the amount of physical memory has been used up. So if you're not sure about this, then check the video on how to speed up the computer tips #1 video that explains why memory is such an important thing. And so what we really want to look at is combine these two views and give us an idea of what it is that might be slowing the system down. So we know that this A5 backup is running all the time and that that's using up quite a bit of memory, so we can turn that off. Now, because no one actually physically logs onto this computer, I'm not going to turn that off, because actually it's an automated process that runs every day. If this were my own PC, I definitely would turn that off, because I will run the backup when I want to run the backup, and I won't necessarily want it interrupting what I'm doing. So I would turn that off. Now basically you'd find the program in this list here and then just untick it. So here if we look at the QB management, we've got this QuickBooks or automatic updates. Well, we don't need that running all the time. And we don't need Microsoft OneNote running every time we start up. And we don't need Office 2010 starting up every time, or Magic Disk, which is a disk imaging software that I use. FlexNet Connect, I don't even know what that is, and so I certainly don't want it running all the time. GoToMeeting, GoToAssist. These are great applications. We use them all the time in technical support, but no one actually uses this PC, i.e. this Windows 7 PC, for technical support, so they definitely don't need to run. TomTom Home doesn't need to run. Google Updates doesn't need to run. Office 2010, there's another version of Office 2010 running there. The Trend Micro is the antivirus. I definitely want that to run. If I apply that, what it will do is it will now mean the next time the computer restarts, these applications are not going to load. They'll still be there. We're not deleting anything. We're just not loading them every time we start the machine. Now we need to restart in order for that to take place, and I'm going to let it do that in a little while, but not just yet. I just want to double check all of this lot to see if there's anything here that's particularly processor hungry, and there isn't really. Don't worry about service host. That's a system process, so we can't mess around with that. That's the other thing. You do really need to know what you're turning off. If you don't recognize the software, then you need to investigate whether or not that's a legitimate piece of software that was installed, or whether it's actually part of the operating system. If it's running by the system, then it's a good indication as to why it would be running. But yeah, that if you're not sure, don't turn them off. But what I'm trying to say is, if you turn off anything that uses, like the TomTom updater. Look, I don't update the TomTom. As you saw, I turned that off earlier. I don't update my TomTom every day, and I don't need it checking to see that there's updates every day, because it actually uses up quite a lot of processing power. Now, one other quick thing to show you is how to you get to this task manager, by the way, by pressing Control, Shift and Escape. That's the keyboard shortcut to bring this up. Why is that important? Because if we're in an application that crashes, you can't always get to this. So Control, Shift, Escape will bring up the task manager. If I close it now, Control, Shift, Escape, there it is again. So that's a handy thing to know if you don't know that already. So I'm going to go ahead and restart that machine, and when I do, it's going to log off the session that we have remotely there, and we'll be back to the Windows 10 desktop, which is great. And now we can actually look at how to do this in Windows 10. Now with this, the Task Manager is both Task Manager and MS Config. So we can literally just go straight into the Task Manager and look at startups. If we look at the performance first, we can see how much memory we've got on this machine. I'm actually running this on a Microsoft Surface machine with iCore 7 processor and 8 GB of RAM. So it's pretty quick. I don't really have any major issues with this performance-wise. But we're just going through the exercise and showing you how you do this under Windows 10. Quite simply, if we look at the performance and we look at the processes here, and we put everything in order of memory as we've done before, we can see what's running here and what's using up the most RAM, and then we can look at the startups and decide what we need to start up and what we don't. And there's an awful lot running here. Google Drive is starting up every single time, and we can see that it actually has quite a high impact. Skype is starting every time, so maybe I just want to disable that so it doesn't start, and maybe I don't need Google Drive to be there every time, so I can disable that. In the event I want to run Google Drive, I can always launch the application. I don't need it running constantly. Now this Microsoft Windows Server computer is a piece of software that backs up the workstation whenever it's brought into the office, so I'm going to leave that running. Snagit is actually currently running now, and I do use it a lot, but I don't need it to run all the time. And as you can see, disabling that doesn't prevent me from recording what I'm recording. I'm not turning anything off right now. I'm just saying the next time Windows loads, don't load all of these things automatically. None of this needs to run, so I'm going to disable that. Again, it has a high impact. Certainly look at stuff that's high impact and disable that first. iTunes Helper, yep, don't need that. I don't need help with my iTunes, and if I did, if I go into help on iTunes, it will actually start that program for me, so I don't need it running all the time, every single time. Windows Bing service, I don't need that either. Receiver updater, don't need that. So I'm just basically going through everything. Microsoft Link I do use. I don't know what that is. I'm going to disable it. Citrix Connection Center I don't need. It is disabled anyway, so there you go. So now we've cut down. And Skype, let's just disable that. I don't have that running all of the time. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So now when I close this, it will probably prompt me. No, it doesn't. Sorry, Windows 10 doesn't prompt you for to restart because it doesn't need you to. Here we are. We've rebooted again. I'm going to use my Control, Shift, and Escape on here to bring this up. And we can see that our CPU, so our memory usages are now only 26%. We should be running considerably quicker at this moment. This peak here is when we rebooted, and this here is a historical graph of what's going on now. As you can see, the amount of memory is low, the amount of disk usage is low. We're literally 27% RAM, and that's largely down to the fact that we're doing a live screen capture. We can prove that by looking at the processes and see that Snagit is by far the biggest user, which is the screen capture software that we're using. Let's just jump onto the Windows 7 machine again. Control, Shift, and Escape on there brings up the Task Manager again, and we can have a quick look at the performance of this system. Now remember, before we were using half the RAM. It's come down a little. It was 1.55, it's now 1.27. Again, the processor is a bit lively because we're running this Task Manager. In fact, Task Manager itself uses up quite a bit of processing power. So hopefully you found that useful, and you'll realize that just going through that exercise of using msconfig and turning off programs that start up will save your system quite a lot of running. And the other thing is, remember to reboot your system, you know, at the start of every day. I tend not to just put things in standby and then keep running, because that slowly but surely you're just eating up more and more of the system RAM. If you found this useful, please subscribe to the channel. Follow the series of 10 videos talking about 10 things that you can do for your computer. This is the PC version of that. Of tip number 2, which is looking at startup programs. Hope you've enjoyed it, hope you subscribe, and if you've got any questions, please do use the comment section below. We always answer the comments, so thank you for taking the time to watch.